Another noteworthy behavioral manifestation of the stereotypes and prejudice is the self-fulfilling prophecy. In different interactions, for example, the biased expectations individuals have regarding the other person may lead them to behave in a manner that will elicit the expected kind of behavior. For instance, if we expect an interaction partner to be unpleasant, we may start the interaction by behaving in an aloof or cold manner, which in it can turn into a more unpleasant response. This process can unfold quite automatically in the stereotypic expectations, and those can be activated unintentionally. And moreover, and just noted, they can also trigger corresponding automatic behavior on the part of the person holding expectancy. So we already talked about stereotypes and prejudice to arrive and to come up into the equation intentionally and unintentionally. So when we talk about consciousness and unconsciousness, also it's important to point it out. So welcome to this new episode of me talking about psychology. We're reading a book that is called social psychology, but this has like different parts, and that is what I love because it points out different parts with different concepts in terms about psychology. And if you watch my previous videos, you know that we've been reliving little by little more concepts about it. So we're going to talk about the self-regulation bias. That's what I was talking about. Judgments and behaviors, they don't need to actually reflect the bias and influence of automatic stereotypes and prejudice. Research has identified boundary conditions that generally accord with the moderating processes that are known to govern the expression of bias and in judgment. So this is like we're talking about automatic behavior and behavioral control. Those terms are going to appear. So although stereotyping and prejudice are ubiquitous, or I don't know how to say this, but both social norms and internal standards can be not prejudice as well. So individuals can attempt to control their expressions. Indeed, despite initial theories suggesting that bias responding may be inevitable, or it can train a stigmatized group member. Also, other research suggests that it is possible for social perceivers to control the initial activation of prejudice associations as well as to curb the influence of prejudicial or, of stereotypical associations or bias associations once activated on judgments and behavior. So people that start like being pretty pretty rude to other people, that they have like this kind of biases, this kind of concepts of arguments about other people, they can have the idea like right there, like in the corner of their mind, trying to get out, but they can't stop it. But even though they cannot stop it, they just come forward and say it. It's like in social media, when you spotlight someone being rude to another person, people just start filming like some kind of fight, argument. It's just like, at some point, I know it could be like automatic, so just word by word when it's to each other. But some people that tend to be having like this kind of concepts, let's say that way, while other people that of course are really, really questionable, at some point they had it like in the top of them. At some point they could say to yourself like, hey, maybe this isn't right, maybe this isn't something to say about another person, because one thing is what we believe and another thing is how the other person could think about it, how the other person could associate that idea about it. So not everything needs to be public, not everything needs to be shared. So some people say are filters, right? But the control of the initial activation of those associations can be actually not activated. Does that happen constantly? Do we have the option to do that every time that we're fighting with someone, for example? No, we don't. But when it does, do you have like the opportunity to activate it or not? So there might be like some kind of automatic activation of stereotypes. That's also true on encountering a relevant group member or any other that could be like a widespread of intentions, associations, and arguments. The extent to which biased mental associations become activated for perceives or just perceivers depends on a large number of factors that we were mentioning before, including chronic individual differences such as the receiver's explicit attitudes and motivation to respond in a non-biased way. So it doesn't help when the other person is also like on the same challenging attitude and that it wants and that it have like a really strong belief as well that is opposite as yours. So that also doesn't help in order for you to activate or not activate your biased belief. We all have biased belief. I think even like each belief that we have has some kind of bias percentage. So it's not like something bad. Is I'm coming from with this in order for you to know that this is more common than just bad. We all have biases. We all can activate those or not. It really depends on the situation, scenario, our mood, the other person, environment, and everything. So it's not to point out like, hey, that's bad. You shouldn't have stereotype. You shouldn't have this kind of beliefs. Like, no, we all have them. Even if it's in like on the positive or the negative side, the spectrum is decided by us, but most of the time it's also decided by others and what social norm is going to tell us now. So it's not in order to point out. Sometimes I know some beliefs or some thoughts are wild. I cannot say like they're not like some are wild. And we say like, how does this person believe this? Does this person believe like this is true or not? Is she, he, or whatever I was talking serious? Yeah, I get that. But we need to reload again and we say like, hey, I also have biases, probably not as strong as this person. But I cannot just come forward and say you're wrong. Like, if it's something like really arranged to the person, it's like this could be something bias because this and this and that. You need to see the whole picture, the whole spectrum, the whole possibilities. Okay, so let's talk. One of the best studied bias regulation procedures is stereotype suppression, the deliberate attempt by individuals to prevent those kind of biased thoughts, from entering their consciousness. Although suppression is an intuitively appealing strategy that is actually some kind of easy to implement, considerable research has documented its unintended that it has like unintended consequences as everything has. Especially shortly after suppression, the suppressed idea can become really hyper accessible due to the mind's effort to monitor the restricted content. In one of the first demonstration of stereotype hyper accessibility following suppression, this researcher McCrae had participants compose an essay about a day in the life of a skinhead Half of the participants were instructed to avoid the influence of stereotypes when writing their essay, and the other half was given no specific instruction. In other words, suppressing skinhead stereotypes caused them to become even more accessible than they would have been if participants had never attempted to suppress them. So they just removed the control feature, like, hey, group number A, I'm going to tell you for you to cry at the end of the life for this type of person. But try to suppress any stereotypes that you might have. Just keep that in mind. But group number B came forward and said, like, okay, just write about this type of person, that's it. Interesting. Even though this stereotype rebound effect is troubling, other work suggests that under their conditions, at least some individuals are able to employ a suppression strategy successfully. So even though people don't tell you, you can also do it. For instance, individuals with more practice or internal motivation to control the expression of prejudice are better able to suppress stereotypes without falling prey to stereotype rebound. So it is up to you. What this research is giving you, this story is that it is also up to you to train your head and say, like, hey, Mr. Head, let's say that this is Mr. Head, right? Hey, Mr. Head, don't be like that. Don't. And when you practice that constantly, this is specific task or action for you, for sure. It is also about bringing into your consciousness when you're being a stereotypical. That could be like a great way for you to spot it. Like when you're talking about a person in a judgmental way, like for example, like, hey, have you seen George? I mean, that shirt doesn't suit him. He looks awful. I really don't like how he looks and stuff like that. Just like you told your hair, like, wait a minute. Why am I just criticizing this person? Why I don't like his shirt, and when I don't like the contrast with his skin, and then you start seeing like maybe it's about color, or maybe it's about his hair, maybe it's about something that I perceive as disturbing and that I haven't spotted, and then I just continue criticizing one person. Today it was Tom, then it was Richard, then it was another person. But why it is that? And those kind of quick chit chats with people in the office, at college, people at work in general, and even on side your WhatsApp groups, it's just like, no. Wait a minute, why am I judging something that is external to me, that doesn't affect me? Because majority of the times we're just doing this quick chit chats when people, the interesting person on the topic doesn't know about, right? So internal suppressions also lets you know that you're probably being biased, and you start questioning something about yourself. That is like a great step too. Or someone else could be, another thing could be that someone just pointed out on you, like, hey, why are you doing this? Why do you think it's looking like that? And why you don't like it? Right? People are really straightforward sometimes. Sometimes it is appreciated. On this particular case, is appreciated. So how do you constantly criticize others, and why do you do it? I want you to self-reflect and to see if you're actually doing so. A stereotypical suppression, or behavioral suppressions, or the actual procedure itself. Have you put it into practice? Did you know how was it called? Because it's in order not for us to point out on you. It is in order for you to also learn something here and to reflect about society, social norms, psychology as well. So thank you so much. I hope you can answer all these questions and see you another time. Bye bye.